Marijuana. Adolescents and recreational marijuana. Objectives. To gather research of pros and cons of legalizing recreational marijuana and how it will affect the adolescents of America. This is not a project on medical marijuana purposes. First, I will compare and contrast relevant media outlet discussions, which will include different political standpoints, then scientific research surrounding the effect of marijuana has on adolescents, and then finally drawing a personal conclusion. The information I gathered are from Fox News, CNN, PubMed, Springer Link, Wiley Online Library, and the DEA. The Controlled Substances Act. The Controlled Substances Act places all substances which are in some manner regulated under existing federal law into one of 5 schedules. This placement is based upon the substance's medical use, potential for abuse, and safety or dependence liability. This basically states that local governments have no authority to legalize the use of recreational marijuana because it falls under federal jurisdiction. However, during the Obama administration, they launched a policy of non-interference, allowing them to legalize it in certain states, thus creating legal precedents for others. Tucker Carlson for Fox News. On Fox News, Tucker Carlson discusses marijuana legalization with Patrick Kennedy, a previous U.S. congressman. Kennedy discusses his hesitance on legalizing marijuana because it could lead to a decrease in social justice, affect adolescents, and the American health as a whole. His key points to the discussion are that marijuana does help with some medical issues. However, legalization can lead to commercialization, which can lead to profits being more cared about than the American health. And to add on, he says that Americans will become more dependent to cope on the drug to cope with stress rather than dealing with the problems themselves. I picked 2 theories here, but I'm only going to discuss one, the agenda setting theory, because I believe that Tucker and Kennedy do not necessarily want marijuana to remain illegal. However, they want all the facts surrounding it to be presented, both pros and cons, and so their agenda is to present the negative side because they believe others will not. Canada just legalized recreational marijuana. Here's what you need to know. CNN released a report on Canada's recent legalization of recreational marijuana. They have stated that a person must be of legal age, which is 18 in Quebec and 19 in the rest of Canada, to purchase, consume, or grow marijuana. It will not be sold in other stores that sell tobacco or alcohol and will gross approximately $4 billion a year in Canada alone. There are still reports of those worried about this and how it will affect adolescents. However, there are strict laws in place to try and prevent underage consumption like alcohol does. The theory I used here is diffusion of innovation, because I believe that it's a new product that's being legalized, which was illegal before, and becoming more and more popular in the media and with the citizens of Canada. It also helps that they showed the laws in place to aid in the prevention of underage marijuana use. Adolescent effects. Many studies, such as Jonathan P. Calkins' The Real Dangers of Marijuana, and Elizabeth J. D'Amico, Understanding Rates of Marijuana Use and Consequences Among Adolescents in a Changing Legal Landscape, are hesitant in the legalization of recreational marijuana because of adolescent use. Calkins goes into detail discussing how any type of drug use, such as alcohol, has a negative effect on undeveloped brains, such as that of teenagers. This has much to do with perceived harmfulness because there are research articles that conclude that similar depressants, such as alcohol, have negative effects on the developing brain. Cannabis and Alcohol Use and the Developing Brain by A.D. Morello. The purpose of this study was to examine major differences between users and non-users of alcohol and marijuana on the adolescent brain. I use this study because it compares the effects of legal recreational drug for those 21 years or older, but still has an easy access to alcohol, and a controversial illegal, possibly legal in the future, recreational drug, marijuana. So here we have the flow charts. As you can see, the first one is clearly about marijuana. So from a neurological aspect, according to the comparative study, they found that those who have used marijuana regularly as an adolescent suffered from a decrease in attention, memory, processing speed of memory, and planning ability. It also shows that the brain itself does not go through a serious change, unlike alcohol, which will be shown in the next slide. They also mentioned that the higher cannabinoid levels and the lower THC levels are in marijuana, the more safe it is to use, and that most illegal sellers are selling THC-rich products. So now we move on to the alcohol effects, and they found that attention distress tolerance, memory, and executive function decrease over time. as an adolescent with alcohol use. However, some distress tolerance can be recovered with sobriety. This also shows that the brain itself does change, leading to a large increase in activation areas of the brain, such as the bilateral striatum and others, which appears to have a negative side effect. How does state marijuana policy affect U.S. youth? Medical marijuana laws, marijuana use and perceived harmfulness. Keyes conducted a survey before medical marijuana was introduced legally in the U.S. The results were that after it was introduced, the perceived negative effects on adolescents decreased. Also, for those who still perceived it negatively, saw a decrease in marijuana use. What this means is that the drug was legalized for medical purposes and was proven to aid those who needed it. And so the perceived negative effects went down because it aided those who needed it. The long and winding road to cannabis legalization. This study shows how marijuana would be regulated if legalization, and found that in some ways is the same as alcohol. So what this figure shows is that as prices increase per gram, the number of 9th through 12th graders who used it within the past 30 days and those who ever used it at all decreased when prices increased. Now, this doesn't mean that prices should be absurdly high. However, this is to dissuade those who are too young from using it. Prices would have to be somewhat high. But it also mentions that if it is too high, illegal marijuana sales stays prevalent. So basically what they suggested is that there has to be an optimal price range for underage use to go down and illegal sale to go down. So here we have my conclusion. So we have Fox News is skeptical that there aren't numerous side effects to medical marijuana, and they're hesitant because they don't know if it's in the nation's best interest to legalize it. And I agree with that. But as we can see from what CNN reported, Canada is going to gross nearly $4 billion in the first year of revenue. And it also has strict guidelines in place. So I think we have something to learn from them if we are going to continue legalizing it to prevent underage use. So I believe both have an important message and have to be taken into account. So the studies I presented asked some questions as well. How can we legalize it and prevent underage use? So one theory, which was backed by the research, suggests that we find an optimal price range so that we can keep underage use low and illegal sale low. According to studies, after people have become accustomed to the idea of legalization of this drug, their perceived negative effects decrease dramatically, which means people are more accustomed to the idea, or being open to the idea of wanting it legalized. So, but I still believe further research is needed because, I don't want to affect the youth with a depressant, because I know many people use it now when they're younger, and it does affect them even if they don't see it. And so this can be a problem. Alcohol does the same thing. It's for 21 years and older for a reason. So marijuana needs to be pretty much similar because they're both depressants, even though alcohol is considered worse. So I believe that just more research is going to be needed. But in time, I do believe marijuana will be recreational legal for a certain age. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening and learning more about marijuana with me.